Welcome to Hope Academy. My name is Mr. O, and today I'm going to be going over the common application for specifically the 2017 through 2018 year. Be aware that when I'm going through this application, I have skipped a few steps. I have already created an account on the Common Application website and have added a few colleges already, just so that you could see sort of like the comparison between certain colleges and how the process works. But I do also want to mention that I have already a number of years of experience doing college counseling work with students, getting students into multiple Ivy League schools, including like Harvard, Brown, Yale, and those sort of schools, along with some UCs and other private and public schools outside that domain. But that being stated, some of the things that I will mention is more on the objective side to sort of give the factual information along the way, but I'll also mention some things that I personally, as subjectively as my personal experience working through this process, will mention, and the different opinions could come in where some people might disagree with me, some people would agree, but this is more around my own personal perspective, going through the application process myself, graduating from Harvard University, but also just going over the years of developing this skill, working through the Common Application. I do want to mention that some of the changes comparison to last year's Common Application to this year is that the Common App has added some new schools, international and domestic based schools in the United States, to the Common Application. But the more significant thing they have added is this sort of electronic system, sort of like a drop down list in the Common Application, as I have noticed from some articles around this. But that being stated, I haven't tested the application myself, so I'll be testing it with you guys today and explaining along the way my sort of thinking as a college counselor, what I would be thinking. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the information and we're going to get started. So Hope Academy, perfect. And we're going to go ahead and get logged in. So right here, when you log into the Common Application website, usually it's actually going to be blank. And the dashboard will be blank because usually when you start off, you don't have colleges you selected yet. The way you could go ahead and add these colleges like Boston College, Emerson, and whatever not that I have listed right here is that you could click the college search, information, type down the college information down here and fill out any necessary information. You don't have to fill out every single piece of information right here to find the college. But that being stated, just make sure to type it down, and then you will eventually be able to find the specific college that you're interested in. So for example, let's think of one potential college. Let's say I'm looking for like Loyola University of Chicago. I'm not going to type down the whole thing just because if I type too specifically, it might not be able to find it. Sometimes you can just put down the specific, like country and whatever not, just to make it easier on the system itself. So I'm going to put down United States, but I'm not going to fill out everything else. Right here, it's going to tell me which Loyola-based schools. I don't see Loyola Chicago, so most likely that means that they have their own application system. But that being stated, you could find other Loyola schools, check it off. For example, let's say I was looking for the Maryland one, add it into my list, and then it will be under my dashboard. And so I'm going to just go ahead and do that, and then go to my colleges, and it's going to pull out this information. But under the dashboard, I'm going to find out Loyola University Marymount is now added in my dashboard. But that being stated, usually when you're going through this application itself, I do want to make it very clear that this system has multiple tabs you could switch between. So like dashboard, my colleges, Common App, and so on. And so for example, when I'm looking at a school like Boston College, it's going to break down what I need. The front page right here is also going to mention certain things like what is the first year, when's the deadlines, and so on. I do want to also explain that when they mention early action versus regular decision, there is some confusion to students as to what each of those mean. Early action usually means that you could apply to the school earlier to see if you could get accepted, but it is not binding. So that means that you could apply to that school and then see if you get in. If you do get in, it's an option you have, and you don't have to decide until much later, until you get the other regular decisions, and then you could decide yourself. There's also another option called early decision, and I think a perfect school to test that out is the University of Pennsylvania. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. But that being stated, if you look right here, they mentioned early decision is due in November 1st. And what early decision means is that if you apply to that school and you get accepted to that school, you must attend that school. It is binding basis. I do also want to mention that even though it's not shown on this platform per se, or it might not be, and let's see actually under Harvard if it is, it actually will be sometimes the case where there's actually something called a restrictive early action. The significance behind that statement is that comparison to early action, school, where you could apply to multiple early action schools and see if you could get in. Restrictive early action means that you could only apply to that school specifically, but as usual, like early action, if you do get accepted, you do not have to accept their offer. You could wait during the regular decision, see what happens during your decisions then, and then decide whether or not you do want to attend Harvard University, for example. And so be careful and make sure to think about that possibility. A lot of times, early action, because it is faster, means that you do have to get your essays on time ready, your SAT scores on ready, and so on. I do also want to mention that the fees to apply to schools are provided below. There's contact information. Be aware that a lot of these private schools you could actually get fee waivers for. So based on your school that you're attending, you should talk to your counselor if you need a fee waiver. It's usually dependent on your financial income or family income. And so just make sure to check into that and see, if you need to do so, and so on. Continuing on, usually they will provide mention certain things. For example, this school, Harvard, requires the common application personal essay, and they do require you to answer, the certain questions around the college questions. They mention optional questions along with a writing supplement that is also optional. I do want to mention that even though a lot of times colleges do mention certain things are optional, such as Harvard, mentioned right here, I do highly recommend that you do that work. And usually it's a lot of college counselors will say it's almost implied that it is required when they say optional, just because usually the colleges would like to know you better, and those questions that you would answer that are optional will only help the college understand you better and see whether or not you fit in what they are looking for potential candidates. I have heard of a few instances when certain people have not done the optional and still have gone into the university, which is very possible. But to maximize your chances of getting into the school, it seems that it usually does have pretty strong influence on the admissions officer's decision to decide whether or not you get into that certain school. So I do want to mention that's an important thing. I do also want to mention, even though you saw me doing it, that based on a certain schools, you could click off and switch off based on a certain school you're interested in. And so let's say we go to Emerson College, and let's say I want to see the questions, right? Right now, for example, it might be the case that it's offline, and so let's just go ahead and go to another site and see what happens right here. And so right here, what's going to happen is that you're going to have to fill out all of these parts. If you see a check mark right here, not really sure why there's a check mark. I'm assuming it's because it's optional. But if you see a check mark, that means technically it's completed. If there's no check mark, that means you need to fill it out. So for example, I could go through this. State is fall 2018. State that I'm going for restrictive early action. I want to live on campus. Do you intend to pursue it? Yes. Usually most people should pursue it unless you're coming from a very, very high income background. I do plan to submit it, so I'm going to push yes, and I'm going to push continue. And what's going to happen is that it will go down to the next tab and continue on, where I'm going to fill out the information and I'm going to try to answer it to the best of my ability. Okay? And so as long as you keep going through this, you make sure you go through it and be as accurate as possible. So for example, if you're not a musician, do not put yes for this, that you're applying to a dual degree program with the New England Conservatory. Usually that's for musicians that are, practicing or trying to send in a musical portfolio to get into the school. I do also want to mention right here, sometimes you will be provided a short, response space, and you'll notice that the max word limit right here is going to be 150 words for a question based on this. Discussing around your intellectual life may extend beyond the academic requirements and so on. Make sure that when you are filling this out, to not do it directly on the comment application website. A lot of times I hear horror stories and certain things where students will fill out like a whole essay into the space, and then realize that even if they save it or something happens to their computer, sometimes it disappears. And so just to be reliable, usually I recommend that you copy this whole portion right here, copy and paste into like a Google document or a Microsoft Word document, and then type out your response and make sure that you do fit within the 150 word count. It's not necessary to fill out all 150 word limit and fit it up there. It's more about the quality, not the quantity. So make sure you do so. And then if we continue down to the portion that says activities, right here is going to state what activities are you interested in, and just be very honest about yourself, what you are interested in or potentially want to do. And right here it's going to be another expectation. If you notice right here, they actually mention a minimum of 50 words. And they want you to max of 150, and so you'll be talking about your extracurricular experience and so on. And so this is more around just the basic breakdown around this application when it comes to questions. Right here, usually what's going to happen is that you're going to first fill out in your education portion in your personal profile is to put down which high school you attend. Once you are able to fill out what high school you attend to, they're going to ask you for the information for your recommenders. And so they're going to talk about things like, oh, like please write down or type down your recommender's name, type down your recommender's email. And so what's going to happen after you type that information is that it's going to, once you submit that information, it is going to send a link to your recommender in an email requesting for your it's going to state that you are requesting for a recommendation from that individual, whether it be a teacher or outside organization person. And so what's going to happen is that the teacher is going to be expected, or I mean not just teacher, but outside organization person or whoever is going to have to create a common application account that's under recommender list, and then they will be able to fill out the necessary information in the common app recommendation. Usually the recommendation itself will talk about things like rating from 1 to 5. Was this person's like confidence, the person's growth, ambition, and then eventually they will put in like a PDF of the recommendation in there and submit it. And so once they submit it, they will receive an email stating that they received it along with the student. And so just be aware of that. Afterwards, if I click down to the review and submit information, once every component is there, it will ask you to review over your information, make sure that everything's confirmed, and then you will be able to submit your information once you are certain that is completed. Right here, actually I should push under questions first. Questions, this is the more optional portion. They'll ask you to answer one portion right here and then upload a file. I do want to mention that right here, if you notice, there is no word limit specifically for Harvard University. And so make sure that you are clear which question you are answering. Make sure you type it out to the best of your ability. Do not write 5, 6, or like 10 pages of response just to try to make yourself look impressive, unless it is really quality content that you are explaining your passion or what you have done or your personal experience and so on. Usually when you're doing this, you do want to try to limit it to like several pages at most, and just like be concise and get to the point and explain and make sure you stand out. And I do recommend that once you do so, to put it in a PDF format so that there are not issues that arise, because sometimes template formats or because of different computers people have, the formatting on certain things such as Word changes. And so I do recommend doing it in PDF or changing it to PDF, saving it as that, and then submitting it and so on. Okay, and so afterwards you'll be asked to review the same thing, and then you'll be eventually inputting and so on. Also be aware, sometimes certain schools like Harvard will ask you for a portfolio if you mention that you have like a music portfolio or some sort of art portfolio, and there will be instructions to that will explain to you how to submit it. Sometimes certain schools, and I will talk more in relation to music just because I was myself a violinist, sometimes they'll ask you for specific music repertoire. And so they'll mention that the recording might have to be like 10 minutes. Some schools might say 15 minutes. They'll mention that sometimes some schools will say, I want a classical, baroque, and this type of genre based portfolio. Some schools are very liberal and just say, could you submit 1 or 2 songs, just this time limit, and that's it. Please submit it to this address or to this specific link, or upload your music to this link and then submit it. And so based on that certain factors, make sure that when you're submitting a portfolio that it is of strong content. I've heard of people say that if you're not really outstanding or very strong in a particular art, music, and so on, that is actually recommended not to submit it, because sometimes it might actually look bad on you if you are submitting something that's not of strong quality, especially to the school, because the school sometimes will use that portfolio to talk to the orchestra member, not orchestra member, more like the orchestra head leader or the professor that manages more of the music aspect, to listen to it. And so sometimes your decision around your school could be influenced based on your performance level, and sometimes that's just something you have to be aware of and be careful of. So make sure to discuss with people to see whether or not your performance level is appropriate in order to submit for colleges. And so I just wanted to mention that. To continue on, I do want to mention on the Common App, I didn't fill out any of this. I do want to mention though is that when you go through this profile, make sure to be very accurate on everything that you mention. There are, as it states right here, it continues down on information. So it will ask about your family, about your educational background, like it will mention your GPA and so on. So make sure to fill it out to the accuracy as best as possible. The thing I do want to talk about is specifically under the activities. And so I do want to show you, for example, just a quick breakdown how the activities look like, because this is actually really significant. And I think it's something that a lot of people do not think about when they're filling this out. So when you're doing the activities, it's going to have like a check down list. So it's going to talk about things such as, internships, different things like debate and so on. Let's say I'll choose debate, because that was one of the things I personally did during school. And let's say the leadership description, organization name. So let's say a lot of times you do want to be precise, specific, and just get to the point, okay? So for example, let's say I'm talking about, I was president of Junior State of America, and that's just like an organization, debate organization that exists. So I'll type in something very specifically like this. Do not type more, do not type less, whatever not. If you notice right here, they say, please describe this activity, including what you accomplished and any recognition you received. When you are filling this portion out, I want to emphasize that you want to be very specific, clear, and fast to the point. Do not talk about the mission of Junior State of America, which the organization is basically the largest student-run organization in the United States, which sort of hosts a lot of contemporary-based debates on key issues that we currently face in the United States. Do not talk about that description in this portion. That is not the purpose for this. The purpose is for you to talk about yourself. What did you do? For example, if you were president of the United States, of the Junior States of America, not United States. What you want to mention is the things you've done. So for example, managed 100 students to organize, let's say, 4 conventions, and I'm making this up, like maybe to organize several fundraising events that have raised over $1,000. Okay, so a few things I want to note how I typed it out. I started off with a past tense verb. A lot of times you want to be very action oriented so that people know, this is what he did, and this is sort of the leadership qualities that this individual has. This is the sort of type of formatting that also exists in professional resumes when you're applying to jobs in the future. It's very precise, gets to the point. I do also want to mention that I also included a specific number. Yes, it doesn't have to be perfectly accurate. So if, for example, if you had 28 students or 29 people in like an organization, you don't have to specifically write 29. You could say about 30 people were involved in my club. Be specific about what you've done. And also make sure to really highlight a big thing that you have done in the organization. So for example, if you did raise over $1,000, which is still impressive, it's a solid job, you do want to give that specific figure. If you were, the captain of a sports team and you guys won first place in an all-stars competition, please write that down specifically, that you led the team to win first place in an all-stars, all-state competition, right? This sort of stuff is very important. And you do want to just potentially mention or listed off sort of thing to like manage this thing, supported or like led, supported, helped, advised, whatever not. So like action words, and there are a list of action words you can look online that will help you fill this out, and this is my personal opinion on this. Scrolling down to the participation grade levels. Usually you do want to, if you have a lot of extracurriculars and it fills up the limitation of the number of spaces, and if you note right here, there are a total of 10 spaces available. If you have more than 10 extracurriculars, choose the 10 that will make you the strongest looking. So especially the ones that you could check off as many of these boxes consistently. So let's say you were involved 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. That actually looks very good for the college application. The more years you're involved in, that shows that you're more dedicated to the organization. That shows that you put so much more time into the organization. And it shows that you have a passion for that specific activity. Because doing something 4 years consistently shows that you're committed to something. And that is a strong characteristic that helps you look better for the college application. But do not falsify this information. If you weren't involved during 10th grade because of personal reasons, please do not include that, include 10th grade. Only include it if it is actually the case. Because colleges, you never know, there's a small percent chance, but colleges sometimes do call schools to confirm whether or not the person was involved in this extracurricular or this activity and so on, just to make sure, or to confirm the GPA, just to make sure that the person is being honest, okay? It's not many people, but it does happen. So make sure you just fill this out. So let's just say I fill out all three. A lot of times this part you fill it out yourself, whether it's during school year, it might be during both times, it might be during all year. Just make sure to fill it out appropriately. Hours spent per week. This part is a struggle for a lot of students. I've noticed that some students don't know exactly what to put for this. My advice is that just try to put down what it usually is. So for example, if you have sometimes certain weeks that you guys don't meet up for clubs, or like sometimes sometimes certain things happen and you guys don't meet up. That's fine. That happens. Just talk about generically what usually how many hours you guys meet up. So for example, if you meet up just during lunch, for example, just put 1 hour per week, and you can't type more than that. It'll just tell you to type like a number. So just put 1, and talk about how many weeks spent per year. So make sure to look into your school calendar to see how many weeks it is during the whole school year and so on. But like you make sure to confirm. So I'm just going to put like let's just say 39. I don't know how many weeks perfectly, but just for now let's put that. I intend to participate in a similar activity in college. Usually mention this if you are passionate about it. So for example, if I'm doing Junior States of America, which I mentioned was debate and speech, and I do plan to apply as political science and be involved in government in the school, put yes and push continue if you have more extracurriculars. But that being stated, you do want to go back to the activities thing and just add more as necessary. So for example, right here, my activity 1 here, actually push continue, I should have pushed add another. So what's going to happen is that if I need to put another, I could just click add another, and then it will list off for the next part for activity 2 and so on. I do also want to mention right here that make sure you know that for Common App, you do have to, for almost all schools, required the Common Application essay. As you notice, if you notice the list of random schools that I have posted into my list, only one school qualifies as not required. So the assumption is that you usually do want to go through this essay and do so. Afterwards, the Common App will give you options to choose which essay you want to do. And the 650 is the limit, but even right here it mentions is not your goal. So you don't have to hit 650. You just need to write quality essay, and if it hits over 650, you do have to cut down your essay, but if it's under 650 and it's a quality writing, that's perfectly fine. Make sure that it is longer than 250 words as mentioned, and choose the one that you personally believe connects to you the most. So for example, if I usually recommend for the common application essay to be grounded on something you are very passionate about or something that defines you as an individual. A lot of times some essays in the future in colleges outside of this common app will ask you for more personal information or might ask you more for your academic skills and so on. But just be aware that this one's the one where you know that every college is going to be looking at that you apply to as the default essay, the first essay that they are presented with. So you do want to make sure to take your time and really write one that you are passionate about. Make sure that once you do write the essay to get help, whether or not it is through hiring a private college counselor like myself, or even just asking friends, asking your school college counselor, asking your English teacher or whatever teacher that may be willing to help edit and look over your paper and so on. I do also recommend that you look at how other people write, because one of the things I have noticed working during the years is that a lot of students are not very good at writing about themselves. It's because a lot of the curriculum in schools does not emphasize this skill, so I don't blame anyone for that. And the society in general does not want people to sort of brag about themselves. And so what happens is that your skill of writing about yourself is sort of gets damaged. And so just be aware of this, and so don't be too hard on yourself. Make sure to write the first time and give it to a friend that or someone that will be honest with you. If they tell you to start over, that is very common. A lot of people have to start over. The students that I work with sometimes have to write 4 or 5 times a different essay again and again and again until they get somewhere where it really catches my attention. A lot of times what I look for in an essay is sort of the ability for me to be in the person's spot or to be in the person's reality and to be removed from everything else, to just be in their world and to feel that passion through the writing. And that's a skill that's very difficult to develop. But that being stated, make sure you do go through this information. There is more information about disciplinary history along with potential additional information. I do want to mention about this additional information just because a lot of people, I do notice that especially for low-income students, which I have worked a lot with, sometimes they don't want to fill this portion out just because they feel that sometimes they're making an excuse for some of the difficulties they went through in life and so on. If it is something very significant, some information might be really relevant and important for colleges to know. For example, that you are an undocumented student, that potentially that you went through a lot of poverty issues, homelessness, and so on. This is the portion where you should talk a little bit about that part. Do not make it a sort of excuse or mention anything that, oh, my GPA is low because of like I was going through this time. Just talk about that, mention that experience, and let the colleges decide whether or not that dictates your performance or is appropriate based around your performance. And so just be aware around that. Be also aware for courses and so on. Once again, I have to fill out the education portion of this. And so let's say I'll put down the school for now. And so I'm going to show you right now how the school looks like. And so I'm just going to click a school just because I don't know. I'm just going to click this school just because I don't know the school or anything like that. It's not a school I attended. I just saw it as the first thing. And let's say date of entry, I say it's going to be, usually students start like September or August, depends on the school. And because it's 2018, so 2014 to 2018, no it's not. Did you, or will you? Yes. Graduation month, let's say May 2018, seems to be pretty standard, so I'm going to fill that out. I will graduate, did or will you, no change in progression. So this is the opportunity to mention certain things like that. Let's just say it's Mr. College, and I'm going to go to that last name, college counselor, and let's say information, whatever not. I don't need to fill that out right now, okay? And so this sort of stuff is just very tedious. It will take time for you. So make sure you take time to do this and go through this. But also make sure to double check the work that you do. Because it's so important that when you're going through this, going through this process, that you are very careful to be accurate and so on. And so once you go through all this, double check for spelling, check for accuracy. If you have parents that are available to have spare a little bit of time, do it with them and have them sit next to you to confirm. If you don't have certain information, ask your college counselor, and so on, so that you can confirm that all of this information is accurate and pans out perfectly. You're not. How many courses would you like to report? Let's just say, I don't know, 7. Select the course system, and this is stuff you do want to fill out yourself. And so right here, it will talk about systems. And if you notice right here, it's very intuitive. It does sort of provide checklist systems, and this is where you're going to be able to fill out certain information. So let's say I took AP Biologies, and sometimes some schools call it Advanced Placement Biology, right? Biology, okay? And so you could put here, check this off, and then you continue on. You go through all this information and so on, and then you make sure that it shows everything else. And so right here, if I continue on, you could list down your honors courses. And it also even mentions community-based organizations. So for example, if you have an organization, they have a list of organizations right here that you might be involved with or might have helped you. So for example, let's see if QuestBridge is right here. So QuestBridge, for example, is one of the organizations that provide especially low-income minority students the opportunity to sort of have college counseling opportunity and support. And so you could put down information right here, and then continuing on, and I don't really need to save it. This is just based on your personal interest. You fill it out and so on. Okay. I do also want to mention one last thing right here. They also provide a tab right here where it breaks down like just general information around how to apply for financial aid. They even provide you the link if you want to get to certain schools' financial aid systems and so on, along with scholarship opportunities and so on. But that being stated, I do want to mention just generally that when you're doing the common application, you want to make sure to double, triple check everything that you do. Even when you copy and paste your essay, check that the formatting of your essay goes through properly in the copy and paste when you put it into boxes. Make sure that you do abide to the timelines. And my last advice is to not wait till the last second to get all of this done. That's one of the biggest mistakes that people do when they're going through this process. And what happens a lot of times is that the common application actually crashes around the last day during the time of the deadline area. So make sure to avoid that issue and the stress, unneeded stress, where usually common application does provide extension time afterwards to submit information if it crashes and so on. But do not run the risk of causing yourself just that extra stress. And I do want to talk about one last thing just generally about choosing schools. I do recommend that you always choose schools that that are technically considered your safety schools. Some schools are considered like the mid-tier, like they're solid reaches. They're not guaranteed by, of course, but still solid reaches based on your score, GPA, and whatever not. And then choose schools that are high reaches. This process, sometimes you might need some help with the college counselor just to get an idea. And that will help you a lot to sort of feel out what you're looking for. Okay, and so if you are looking for schools that are within a certain state, a lot of times you could do your research, find out what schools are in the area, and then find out which schools do you feel like you would like to attend. My personal recommendation a lot of times as a college counselor is that I do recommend students to not only apply in-state, but also to apply out-of-state. The reason for this is that when you are when you are applying to a bunch of schools and get into many schools, you have more options to choose from. And so a lot of times that process will require, sort of your parents and discussing what colleges will be best for you, and deciding once you do get accepted into certain schools, which one would be best for you to apply to. But this is just my general overview around the common application. Please do feel free to email me or feel free to comment below if you want to ask any other questions pertaining to the college process. And please do contact me if you are in need of potentially of a college counselor, and we could discuss more privately around what that entails. But that being stated, please do subscribe to this YouTube channel so that I could continue to make content like this. And I hope you have a wonderful day.